The kind of core intention today is to talk about adapting to digital and what that means. I mean, there's 100 million different ways that you can approach digital. There's a lot of different strategies that you can use. It can get very overwhelming as a result. I mean, if you just look at social media, when it comes to YouTube, Snapchat, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, the list goes on. I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs before when they're first, especially transitioning online, or they're looking at digital for the first time seriously, it can feel very overwhelming as to where to look. And if it's not your field that you're most comfortable in, that can be problematic, because a lot of the time overwhelm or confusion stops us from taking action. And so now more than ever with the current situation, it's important that that is eliminated so that action can be taken and steps and measures can be put in place that won't only benefit you now, but will also benefit you long term, because it's a matter of thinking short term and long term and being very aware of where we want to end up. But when it comes to the different business models, obviously different businesses will have different strategies, but the main thing is to look at this as an opportunity to maintain and to create touch points. So just like we're going to a networking breakfast with Introbiz in person, it's about creating touch points. It's about creating relationship opportunities, and people need to see you frequently in order to remember you. And that's obviously what we want to do, because when you can be remembered, you can become top of mind. So one thing that I talk a lot about, which we'll talk more about some other things throughout the morning, but one thing that is particularly valuable, and I encourage you to write down because it's been something that's helped me a lot and has helped a lot of people that I work with, is remembering 3 C's. So the whole purpose with your approach is to focus on creating curiosity. So that's number 1, curiosity. Because when people become curious, they'll reach out to you or they'll start watching you more. So even with social media, if somebody sees a post that makes them curious, they're going to be more inclined to like it, in which case they're starting to engage with you, and then the algorithms will start to share more of your posts with them and so forth. They'll start to actively seek you out. And once they become curious enough, they'll be able to transition to C number 2, which is conversation. And we need conversations to close deals. So how can we create conversation? We've got to first create curiosity in order to have an engaged conversation, because you know just as well as I do that we can send messages on social media. We can connect with people on LinkedIn. I mean, I get messages every single day of people trying to pitch me on LinkedIn. Do I want to engage with those people? No, because I've not become curious enough to want to have the conversation. So you're wasting your time if you're just sending random messages and not building the curiosity first. Because when you build the curiosity, they're going to be more engaged, which means that you can maximize your time. They're getting the most value, and then you've optimized the cycle of building the relationship. So C number 1 is curiosity. C number 2 is conversation. And then the third C, which is the most exciting for both your client and for yourself, is conversion. But in order for us to get to the conversion, we've got to take the time and put the measures in place, or the processes, or whatever it may be for your individual business model, to create the curiosity that will lead to the conversation that will then lead to the conversion. And by conversation, that doesn't only have to mean an in-person conversation. That can be, that can also represent the relationship that they're building through your online processes, for example. So if it's them buying your product, that could kind of equate to it, depending on how you build your whole sales funnel and the whole customer journey that you're setting up. You may have content in place in the future, which you should have, that will have the conversation for you, if you will. So quite often I will post a video, I'll do a Facebook Live, and that will be enough of a conversation for my audience to see, hey, I get what she's talking about, I get the message, and then they're ready to convert. So it's also a matter of looking at moving forward, how we can build that out to scale it. But simply, if you just think curiosity, conversation right now, that might be a one-to-one conversation, then we can get it to the point of conversion.
Brilliant. I think we're okay now, Hannah. I've made you co-host.
Awesome. Okay.
Hopefully you should be able to share the screen.
Perfect. Let me, okay. Yeah, I think I can. So
cool. Thank you, Carly.
Can you guys see this now if I present this?
Yes, we can. Okay.
It turns out, oh, it's already started the presentation. That's good. So you guys can all see this okay, can you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I can't, as I expected, I can't see the chat, but I can see some of your lovely faces. So if you do have any questions, please write them down, and we can chat through them at the end. But basically, as I mentioned already, this is all about adapting to digital. So what does that mean? How are we embracing this new economy? And the digital economy, the new economy, these are words that have been thrown around. And even with my business, which is called iGen Creative, the whole premise of the name, iGen stands for iGeneration, which is another way of saying Generation Z, which is really the first generation to have grown up digital. And it signifies the beginning of this new modern era, this digital era that we're entering in. If you look at how young kids nowadays are growing up with these iPads and iPhones on them, so digitally savvy, and it really is a massive changing point for us in society, because it gives us opportunities to remain connected. And if you consider the current pandemic that none of us expected, you know, now we are more physically apart than ever. We're very, very disconnected physically than we have ever been before, yet we are more connected than ever because of digital. And because of the power that we have with the likes of social media and so forth. I'm going to share an example with you today that really showcases just how important it is and how much of a staple it's going to be moving forward for us. But basically, as I mentioned, the intention today is to really just help to unlock the possibilities that digital can bring you and to simplify it when it comes to your social strategy so that you can just start engaging, as I said, start building relationships and start turning that into positive results for your business, whether it's new relationships who will buy later, whether it's sales that can come through now, how you can disrupt your strategy, how you can adapt, how you can identify new opportunities and so forth. But who am I? Well, my name is Kathleen Hawkshaw, as Tracy kindly shared at the beginning. I am based in Dublin, Ireland, so I'm just across the pond. And I am the founder of iGen Creative. And iGen Creative is a brand and marketing consultancy and agency. We do a bunch of different things, but my biggest personal passion is brand. So I am the brand specialist and total brand geek. And digital overall is something that's been really important for me, not only because of how passionate I am about it, but also because it was the catalyst for what I do now. So I started a fashion blog back in 2010 that went on to win Best Fashion Blog at the National Blog Awards of Ireland. It subsequently created a lot of opportunities for me from my bedroom, from my laptop. It took me offline. So it created a lot of offline opportunities for me in the sense that I got to go to Fashion Week in London, in Berlin. I got to work with major brands like Daniel Wellington, boohoo.com, and I created opportunity. So one word that I speak about a lot, well, two words, but one phrase is opportunity creation. And that is something that I really believe online has the power to create for us, particularly at a time that we're in now. So I've been speaking about that, you know, without the pandemic happening, but because of the current situation, it really gives us the power to create opportunity from our own home. And if I was able to do it as a teenager in my bedroom, then I guarantee there are things you can do for your business that will transition you to the future in a positive way. But that blog, as I mentioned, was the catalyst for what I do now in the sense that it taught me a heck of a lot about attraction marketing and personal brand by doing. So I learned by getting in the trenches. I started learning HTML, watching all of these webinars, soaking up information off the back of the blog. Then I started to do some freelancing for different entrepreneurs and companies. And then off the back of that, I went on to build my business. And that's been my focus since I was 16 years old. So I've been really heavy in the entrepreneurial side since I was 16 years old. And subsequently, I've had the pleasure of speaking on 3 continents. And I actually, you know, the third continent that I spoke on was Africa. I got to speak in South Africa in March with an amazing organization that I'm working with. And I got stuck there because of the lockdown situation. So that was great. Stuck there for almost 7 weeks. But you know, the point is those opportunities came off the back of digital for me. So that is why, you know, it's not just, there are a lot of fancy elements that comes to marketing and you can really overcomplicate it. But when you simplify it, which is what I did when I started and is a core component of what I like to do now, you can really capitalize on what will be impactful for you and your business. And that will differ dependent on business model. And then since then, I've also the pleasure of working with different clients on 5 continents across industries, including finance, fashion, and medical sectors. And as I said, I'm a total brand geek, and I'm sure that you will, well, I hope that you will see throughout this presentation just how passionate I am about marketing and about brand, because it really has the power to change your business, to change your customers' lives, and also to change yours too. So the big questions that I want to focus on today and that I would really encourage you to ponder on is, who are you going to emerge as when this is all over? What is the next step for you as an individual? And also, what are you never going back to as a person and a company? Because we have all changed due to this current situation. We have all changed massively. Our lives have been disrupted, our work lives, our personal lives. And this whole situation has really, in lots of ways, brought us together, but it's also challenged us to think differently and to step massively outside of our comfort zones. And so one thing that you should really be focused on asking yourself is, how are you planning on evolving? So what does that look like for your business? And throughout this presentation, I really, really would love for you to reflect on where you've been, but also where you need to go to survive if you're in a situation where you need to survive, but also post-COVID to thrive in the new digital economy. And a lot of that will relate to what your plans are for your social strategy and so forth. So one example that I wanted to share with you is Zoom. We're all using Zoom now, and their daily meeting participants, I actually don't know if you guys know this, has risen from 10 million users in December to 300 million users because of this current situation. Now that's a massive rise, but it goes to show just how dependent we are becoming on digital and just how much more activity is taking place on digital platforms. And that's really, really important to realize, because a lot of consumers that were not necessarily online before now have no other choice than to buy online. So people are becoming more engaged online. People are looking for solutions. People are basically wanting to connect and to build relationships and to find ways in which they can solve their problems. And Zoom has really capitalized on that, obviously, in the sense that now people need to connect. So everybody from small businesses to the British cabinet are using Zoom to stay connected and to get things done. So just think about that, because the market cap is larger than the combined worth of the world's 7 largest airlines. And the figures are this. So the major airlines combined in stock market capitalization is 46.2 billion, and Zoom is 48.7 billion. And that's mind-blowing. That's just mind-blowing figures. I mean, when I saw that, I thought, wow, I mean, look at how the travel industry, an industry that we have trusted for so long, that we rely on a lot, especially like I travel quite frequently for my work. I know many of you guys do as well. And it's all of a sudden the value has gone down and digital has gone up. Now, I am sure it will recover, and I hope it will recover, because I love accessibility and I love to travel. But the fact of the matter is digital has become more important, and it's changing the way we work, it's changing the way we engage, it's changing our consumer habits and so forth. And that is an opportunity for you to create more relationships leveraging online. So whether you're going to go big or you're going to start small, the most important thing is that we start. So which were you before COVID hit? Were you the business owner or the entrepreneur that had a strategy for digital, or did you have no strategy? And this is a question I'd like for you to answer for yourself. So if you had a strategy in place, if you had six months, let's say, of content lined up in your content calendar to share, the likelihood is that that will need to be changed, because people have changed. The market has changed. We want different things now. We have different problems. And similarly, if you didn't have a strategy, you need one more than ever. So you need to have a strategy, because whether it's to make sales right now or to focus on maintaining or building new relationships, we need that online strategy in place in order for us to be successful in doing that. So answer that question for yourself and hold it till the end. Did you have a strategy or did you not have a strategy? You know, as we've talked about, the world has changed. We have all changed as individuals. We've been massively impacted in terms of the way in which we are handling our everyday lives, in the way in which we have to manage our businesses. And so your marketing needs to change in the same way. So whether you had a strategy, that needs to be adapted, or you didn't have a strategy, now things have to evolve and have to adapt in order to fit the market. So this is a phrase that I'd like to share with you guys, evaluate to evolve. So we want to focus on where we're going, but in order to be effective, we've got to look at where we are within our businesses, where your current strategy is, but also where the market is and where you want to go. So one of the things, or two of the things, excuse me, that you'll need to be considerate of is your personal brand and your company brand. And a lot of the time, personal brand is massively undervalued. There is a lot of awakening taking place at the moment with the power of personal brand. But one thing that I wanted to tap on today is your personal brand is a massive, massive, massive asset for you. So whatever your business is, whatever your company, we've talked about relationships. For example, Introbiz, everyone's coming together. What makes somebody stand out? You know, if we're both selling the same iPhone, why are you going to buy from me as opposed to Paul, or vice versa? You're going to buy from us because you resonate more with one personality over the other, or you engage with the other over the other for whatever reason it may be. And so your personal brand alongside your company brand is something that can really help to drive your business forward. And the way in which I'd like for you to look at it is your personal brand is the human voice of your organization, and your company is the collective voice. So when everybody is coming together, that is what you stand for. And when it comes to your social strategy, ideally you should have measures in place that will optimize both of those for you. Because when you're using one rather than both of them, you're not optimizing that cycle. You're not optimizing the opportunity to build relationships. You're losing opportunities essentially. And I mean, Paul and Tracy, I know for sure, can attest to the fact just how powerful personal brand is. Can open so many doors. And for networking, you know, brand creates influence, and influence equals access. But when it comes to access and it comes to relationship building, Paul said one connection can change your business, but that connection is by the person within the organization. People engage with the individual, they engage with the human voice, and then become massively engaged with the company voice and the collective voice. So I really just would love for you to think about today, being aware of your personal brand. If you haven't thought about it up until this point, you have a personal brand. It's just a matter of whether or not you've decided to really carve and drive the narrative behind that. And in a nutshell, the easiest way to think of brand, whether it's personal or company, but really when it comes to personal, is what do people say about you when you're not in the room? Simple. That's the best way, really, in a nutshell, clean and concise. What do people say about you when you're not in the room? You know, do they think of you instantly, for example, when they're thinking of the solution that your company offers? Are they even aware of you? Have you even stepped forward and said, hey, I'm connected to this business? Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs and founders that I've met, especially who don't actually leverage digital and who kind of want to not be a massive part in their online strategy. And you don't have to be posting videos every day if you don't want to. But the point is, if people have the opportunity to engage with you, we want to connect with people. We want to build relationships, and you are unique. That's the beauty. We're all different. We're all unique. And that's a selling point for you. So I suggest that we capitalize on that. And, you know, I can list the amount of opportunities that come from personal brand alongside company brand, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful, and it creates a lot of opportunities. But the good news is we can simplify it and align it very well with your company marketing strategy, so that they can both be working in conjunction rather than separate things. So it doesn't need to cause more overwhelm. It doesn't need to make things more complicated. It can actually simplify everything, because it will make the connections faster and it will speed up the process. But they work together, they work in tandem. And a couple of great examples are looking at the likes of, again, Sir Richard Branson with the Virgin Group. You know, his personal brand has been a core component in their growth. If you look at Spanx and Sarah Blakely, again, another personal brand that really owned the story. And those stories, because their individual unique spirits, really engaged people and started to drive the culture that they were creating, and you know, laid the foundation for exponential growth. So what I wanted to share with you was 5 R's that can help you to reflect on where you are now and where you want to go. And I do apologize, by the way, if you can hear my dog in the background. The postman or something must be walking past. He's just decided to chime in. He's saying, yes, personal and company brand. Let's go. Let's do that. But the 5 R's that I wanted to share with you will help you to evaluate where you are so that you can evolve for where you're going. So number 1 is to review. What is your brand and marketing strategy right now? Where is it at the moment? Look at your online channels. So how is your website framed at the moment? Do you have a Facebook page for your business? Do you have a Twitter account? Whatever channels you may have been using previously or that you may have set up, what do they look like? And the same thing goes for your personal account, because now more than ever, people are going to be looking at your social channels. So if they're engaging with you on the likes of this meeting today, they're going to go and check you out on LinkedIn. They're going to look at your Facebook profile. Are you letting yourself down, or are you presenting yourself in a way that showcases all of the great reasons why people should work with you to create that curiosity? So again, it goes back to the 3 C's that we talked about: curiosity, conversation, conversion. The way we can pique curiosity is through our online presentation and through the message that we're sharing in our content. So look right now at your website, at your social channels. What are you saying? What have you been saying up until this point? Has it been powerful? Has it been working? And so forth. And then once you've done that, reflect. So consider, once you've looked at your channels, okay, you see where you've been so far, you see where you are now. Is it properly encompassing the message that you want to share? Is it showcasing what you stand for? And one thing that I talk a lot about, which I'm going to touch on a little bit more today, is the difference between a product-led strategy and a brand-led strategy. And so when it comes to looking at your social channels and your website and so forth, you know, are you brand-led? Are you leading with your what's at the heart of your organization, the core message that you stand for? Because if you're only focusing on one product or service that you offer at the moment, you're actually limiting yourself and you're pigeonholing yourself. And a great example of a brand-led business is something that I'm going to share a little bit later on in more detail, but it's Apple. They have been very, very effective in their marketing strategy, and it's because they have been brand-led that they've been able to be so powerful. So consider, what does your brand represent? What does your company stand for? If you are the founder of your company, it's likely that your values / your mission will be very similar to your personal brand. Right now, let's focus on the company brand strategy and consider, what does your brand stand for? What's the message? What's the why behind what do you do? Why did you start? And consider if that's being portrayed. And then reverse. So what is your end goal? I like to call it your North Star goal. What's the big vision? So where do we want to take your organization? Because in order for us to get to where you want to be, I'm a big believer that you have to first identify that point and work backwards. Because if you start without the goal in mind, then we are stabbing in the wind. You know, we're not moving with a certain direction. It's like, that's the reason we use Google Maps to get to where we're going, because we want to know our destination and then we can work backwards to get there. And the map tells us where we need to go and so forth. So you need to consider, where do you want to end up, and then work backwards from that. And what we can do is we can look at, what are the elements that you need to have in place? What are the different assets that you need to have in place? What social channels are most effective for you and so forth? What is the customer journey? What is the core value ladder and product flow? In order for us to identify that effectively and then transition it to your online strategy, we've got to know where you want to end up. And then finally, redesign and restart. So by redesign, it means make the necessary changes. So we've reviewed where you're at now. We've reflected on what you stand for. We've reversed engineered your goals. We've considered, where do you want to end up? Now we can actively make the necessary changes to your current presentation and then restart your strategy. So actually be active in communicating with your customers to take the control of the route that you want to go down to really, really build your business moving forward. So 5 R's: review where you are now. What have you been doing up until this point, personal and company? Reflect, what do you stand for? Have you been portraying that core message, or can that be improved upon? Reverse engineer, so know where you want to end up. Redesign, so make the changes, whether it's aesthetic, whether it's copywriting, whether it's, you know, certain pillars that you want to change. Do you want to change the pictures? Do you want to change the core language that you're utilizing? Make those necessary changes that you can now to both your presentation and to your sales flow. So the process that people are going through to work with you online, or to stay engaged with you, depending on if we can sell right now, if we're looking at a later sales strategy. And also restart to communicate with your customers. So press go, basically, on everything that we've just talked about. Press go and get started, because like we mentioned at the beginning of the call, one thing that can happen with digital strategy, if you are not familiar with it, is overwhelm. And so we need to eliminate that so that you can press go and you can actually start, because once we start, then we can test response, we can see how people react, and we can adapt to continue to evolve. So look for problems and identify new opportunities to support and serve your customers. One thing that is very important to consider at the moment is the fact that we have all changed. So we talked at the beginning, we're all changing. This time has been unlike nothing we've seen before, and everybody is reacting to that. So when it comes to your digital strategy, one thing that has to be considered is, who is your audience? What are your buyer profiles? I call them customer avatars. You know, why do they want your product or service? What is the problem you're solving? What solutions are they looking for? What age range are they? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Where do they live? And so forth. What are the drivers behind their purchase? Now, a lot of those drivers may have changed for your customers. So we are not the same anymore. So even if you thought you knew your customer, you need to do some more digging likely into what's driving them now, because then we can identify what are the best ways to support and to serve them. And so when it comes to the digital strategy right now, I don't suggest you go out there and start, you know, shouting necessarily about a COVID-19 offer and so forth. You need to do what's right for your customers in a way that will keep them engaged with you, so that they don't see it as you're just doing a marketing ploy to make a sale to them, because people need to feel supported now more than ever. And people want that. We want to build relationships with companies that genuinely care about us and who are stepping away from just the transaction-based approach, and of course, who still are going to maintain and monetize, but who do it from a place of actually caring and supporting the customer and create sustainability. And what that will do is it will create brand loyalty moving forward, and it will mean people keep coming back to you. So whether it's now that they can buy from you, or it's in 6 months or 1 year's time, they will see you as the person and organization that tried to help them rather than just tried to sell them. Because a lot of businesses are going through change at the moment. A lot of businesses are adapting, some are struggling, some are you know, trying new things. But if you come from that approach of trying to support and serve your audience by looking for problems that they may have and identifying ways in which you can help them overcome those, then that will really, really help to create a positive brand identity for you in the market. And we don't want something that you may decide to do now to quickly make a sale to detract from your brand long term, because it takes years, it takes months, depending on how long you've been building a business. It takes a long time to build a brand, to build trust, but it takes seconds to destroy it. And so you also don't want to do something too quickly in a way that's not authentic to who you are, that's not supporting and serving your audience, because then you will just cause problems moving forward. So brand-led business. I mentioned Apple. Well, as you can see here, our passion lies in transforming perspectives. And for me, I'm a total brand geek. And the first thing that I always focus on is designing and developing the brand message that embodies the heart of an organization and aligns with the North Star goal. So when you're waking up every single day, what is the mission that you're on? I know Tracy and Paul want to impact, I believe it's 1 million. Say 1 million people, Tracy? Yeah, so every morning, whether it's a good day or a bad day, we're waking up because we're on a mission to impact 1 million people. And so you really understand what your North goal is, and that will most likely evolve as well, because I'm sure that you're going to do that sooner than we think. Okay. But a really great example that, you know, Simon Sinek actually talked about it in a TED Talk that he delivered in, I think it was 2009, is Apple. And how they have really managed to go about the brand-led approach to business in a way that's quite innovative. And they've done things quite early in comparison to a lot of competitors. But the reason it's such a great example is because you take Dell as an example, and I say, go and buy a watch from Dell. You would say, why would I go and buy a watch from Dell? Dell's a computer company. That sounds ridiculous that you would even say that to me, Hannah Kathleen. But if I suggested to go and buy a watch from Apple, you'd say, okay, yeah, I should do that, or I consider it, because they've got the Apple Watch. And it seems so normal that they would sell an Apple Watch to us. But Apple, you could argue, was a computer company when they started. But they never led with the fact, they never led with the product-led strategy saying, hey, we sell computers. They led with their message and what was at the heart of their organization, and their desire to encourage people to think differently. You know, to support innovators, to support creation, to support positive disruption, and so forth. And so they started with their why they started, and then worked backwards with the what and the how of what they do. And so that's meant that they've been able to build a brand that can service a lot of different products because they were brand led. So this is something that I really encourage you to think about, which is why I mentioned reflecting on what your brand stands for and whether you're leading with that at the moment, or if you are thinking maybe a little smaller than you have to and focusing more on a product-led approach, because that can work short term. But long term, you'll create a lot more sustainability and a lot more engagement and a greater culture and brand loyalty if you lead with brand. So social media, this is something we've kind of touched on it today, that can be quite overwhelming. And I'd love to know in the chat, I can't see the chat right now, but I would love if you shared it with me for once we're finished. How have you felt towards social media? If you weren't using it actively, have you been overwhelmed by social media? Have you ever felt a little bit unsure as to how to properly optimize it? Have you questioned how you can use it to grow your business? Because these are questions that I've faced from a lot of entrepreneurs. But social media is just an opportunity to connect and to communicate with your audience. It's as simple as that. So whether you're picking up the phone or meeting people at a networking event, social media is just another avenue for you to do that. And it can be it is really, really powerful. And not only can be, it is. So I would love for you to view your online marketing strategy as a chance to just build relationships with new customers and an opportunity to nurture your current client relationships. And again, it goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning in terms of remembering that we want to remain top of mind. So if you take away anything today, social media is the opportunity for you to connect, to engage, and to remain top of mind. So whether people are buying now or later, it's a chance for you to maintain touch points and to continue to engage with them so that they think of you when they need what you have. I'm looking forward to seeing all your responses in a moment. I can see messages coming through, but I can't seem to open them while I have this slide open. But that's something that I would really, really suggest you focus on, because if we take Facebook, for example, if you go to your Facebook, your personal profile at the moment, look at your cover photo, look at your profile picture, look at the intro section that you have on your profile. I think it's 160 characters or something you have. You can write a sentence, or you can put some points that you want to highlight to make people realize what you do. That can make you money. That can close a deal for you. If people can see how you can serve them and the problems, we talked about problems and solutions, it's simple as that. What are you highlighting on your channels? And if you want to make quick changes, then I suggest you go to your Facebook, you go to your LinkedIn, and you look at what you're saying, like I suggested with those 5 R's, because a couple of quick tweaks with your copy can make an impact in terms of how you close deals. And then off the back of that, we can focus on building the brand-led approach. So you need to also look short-term as well as long-term. But one thing that I'm a big proponent of is to not only think short-term, because a lot of the time people do that and it limits your growth, it limits your opportunity. Because if we start with the long-term goal in mind and the North Star that I'm talking about, then we can create a long-term strategy and a short-term strategy that both aligns but impacts in the way that we want it to do for short-term and long-term growth. And then in addition to rethinking how you have been marketing and how you're marketing now, take this as an opportunity to double down on the strategy that will impact you in the future, and to put measures in place now that will help you long term. So one thing Paul and Tracy and I have spoken a lot about in the past is, creating online courses or online resources for your audience to engage with you more. One thing that so many of us have struggled with at times is finding the time to create those things, because we've been so busy running our businesses, or we're doing different projects, or so much is going on, which is a great thing. But now we are all stuck at home. When has the world ever shut down before to give you time to work on that project that you wanted to work on, or to develop that product that could help you with your digital strategy, or to put in place the necessary building blocks that you need to grow your online side of your business? So now is the time to do it. Now is the time to think about, what is that strategy? What does it look like? Even if your product, again, if it cannot be sold right now, that is not a problem. Your customers are still online. You still need to engage with them. You can still support them. You can still let them know, hey, when you're ready, we're here. This is how we can help you throughout this time. If you're struggling with this, we'll have you consider this. Build a relationship with them, and then you can close them later on. But you've come from that place, as I mentioned, of serving and supporting, rather than just saying you're a transaction to me. And that will make people remember you. It will keep you top of mind, and it will mean that you're creating loyalty long-term. So consider what those digital measures look like for you, and let's start laying the foundations for those. So a couple of things that you can do right now. when it comes to your digital strategy that you can go ahead and do if you have a team to do it for you, or if you're doing it yourself, is to look at your channels. So one thing we talked about is, what does your website look like? What do your social media channels look like? Update those if you need to, redesign your website if you need to. If it's not congruent with your core brand message, where you want to go and who your customers are and what they need, make changes. Consider what online flow you can put in place. So if you don't have a sales funnel in place, become familiar with what a sales funnel is. It's basically just an opportunity for people to become a customer online, for them to take their customer journey from offline to online. So whether it's a funnel to just get consultations booking, whether you want to sell an online course, whether you want to create another offer that they can purchase, you can have multiple moving forward that create those pathways, those customer journeys for people to engage with you and become customers of your business. So find out what a sales funnel is if you're not familiar with it. Contact somebody like myself if you need help with that, or another digital agency. Connect with people who can support you on that, and start looking at what would that look like for your business, because obviously different business models will have different approaches, but what would that look like for your business, and what can be put in place now that can be built upon later on? Again, it's about foundations. It's about building things, in my opinion, that we can continue to grow upon rather than have to continuously chop and change. Map out your content strategy. What problems are your customers facing at the moment? You know, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all going through a lot right now, business or otherwise. People are struggling. It's a time of change. It's a time of uncertainty. Get into the mind of your customer. Consider, what do they need? What might they need support on? And then build a content strategy that will serve them positively. So as I mentioned earlier, if you had a 6-month strategy in place, that will need to change because people have changed. So look at, what can you do to adapt? How can you support people, and start to map out your ideas? And even consider writing out some video scripts. So if you're not utilizing video at the moment, video is the #1 best way to get people to engage with you. I always like to say it's the closest thing that we have to being able to have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with someone, and to talk with them about their concern or problem or challenge that they may be facing that we can serve them with. So consider some topics that you might be able to do a video on, or to do a Facebook Live on, because if people can see the human voice of your organization, or the human voices, if you have a partner, if you've got other employees that you want to have at the forefront, then utilize those. Utilize those as opportunities to engage. Another thing, review your site analytics and identify trends and opportunities. So spend some time focused on looking at how your niche, how your industry is changing, how it's adapting, and shift with it. Don't get left behind, shift with it. And that will obviously depend on your business model. It will depend on your niche and industry. But once you can become aware of analytics and identifying those new opportunities, then you can really prepare yourself to pivot and to evolve moving forward. You know, a couple of other things, create a social media calendar. So now that you've mapped the content strategy based on this suggestion with those customers in mind, and considering where they are at now, you can actually create social media content calendar that will be able to work on building those relationships for you moving forward. And you can get an agency to audit your strategy. So I know we've got Daryl on the phone, myself, a couple of other people. You know, connect with people who you resonate with, who can help you with that. And also, one of the biggest things that not enough people spend time on, but is hugely important, is deep dive into your customer avatars. So who is your audience? Who are your customers? Who are your ideal customers? And what are they going through right now? So recognize the problems or solutions that you may be offering that may impact them on a business level, for example, if you're service oriented, but also consider where they are at personally and how their lives may be impacted by this time, and consider how you can support them with those problems and challenges that they may be facing in a way that will serve them to create that brand loyalty. The most important thing, bottom line, is connect. That's the primary word, connect with people. If you don't know where to start by having conversations, start by having genuine conversations. Ask people, you know, how can I help you? We're making some changes at the moment. If you don't know what to talk about, contact some of your clients. Say, listen, we're putting together a content strategy. We're putting together a webinar. We're going to host X, Y, and Z. What would you feel would be most beneficial for you that we can help you with right now? That's the easiest way to get an idea as to what to start talking about. But as you can see, if you didn't already have a list as long as your arm to do, here is a list to start with. If you can start making changes on them, then we have pressed go. We have pressed that button. We have got started. We've got started in a way that doesn't have to massively, challenge you to step out of your comfort zone by yourself, but you can start. And then when you're ready to seriously take this as an opportunity to lay those foundations, to be brand led if you haven't already been, and to lay a strategy in place that can serve you now in connecting with people, but also in the future, then, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a conversation about that. But to close things today, one thing that I did want to share with you guys, I spoke a little bit to Tracy and Paul about this as well. I really felt that the best thing that I can offer for you today is just a conversation. So jump on the phone, let's look at your business model, let's look at what industry you're in, what niche you're in, and consider where you've been, where you want to go, but also where the market is at for you right now, and where your customers, more importantly, are at the moment, and what we can put in place to really help to support them and to engage them with you now and long term. And the best way that I think we can do that is through a strategy conversation. So let's jump on the call as if you're a client of mine. I'll look at some of your information beforehand. We'll send you likely a questionnaire, and we can just take a deep dive into what you've been doing and where you can potentially go, and certain things that you can focus on now to make an impact. And whether we want to keep working together or we just have this 1 hour conversation, then the goal is to make sure that you take something from it that you can positively implement within your business to make the impact that you can make and to support your customers, because this is the time when we need to be supported, and we are here to support you. So thank you for an awesome, I hope you guys enjoyed this 45 minutes or something. I know I went through things quite quickly. I just wanted to make sure I could share as much as possible with you this morning. But what I'll do right now is I'll stop sharing my screen, and then if you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer them for you guys.
Hannah, that was amazing. Thank you so much. You're, as always, a fountain of knowledge. So
thank you guys.
And top tips there as well. So I love the 5 R's. Brilliant. So brilliant there. So is there any of our members online would like to ask Hannah a question? Please
I'll also have a quick, I can see the chat box now that I've stopped sharing my screen, so I'll also have a quick scan. But if anybody has any questions they'd like to start with, please feel free. I won't bite, I promise.
Well, David Davis wants to ask a question. So Dave, do you want to unmute yourself and ask Hannah a question, please?
Hi, Hannah. It was a great presentation. I really loved it.
Hi, David. Thanks so much.
My question is, you talked about simplifying marketing and everything else, but what would, if you were talking to somebody about marketing, what would be the most important part of marketing and possibly building a brand, but mainly marketing, because brand building and marketing don't always mean the same thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, one thing that is an important distinction, and again, I tried to focus in this presentation in covering as much, but also it's difficult to get into it all in detail. One distinction that I can share with you guys, for those of you that may not be aware, is there is a difference between brand and branding, and those can be two words that get thrown around a lot, and that can cause a lot of problems. I see Daryl shaking his head with me. It's such an important conversation. Brand is basically the heart of your organization. It's what you stand for. It's your message. It's your values. It's who you are. And branding are the relevant assets that you will have, such as your logo. It's the visual aesthetic. And so forth. I mean, the list goes on. But in a nutshell, your brand is the heart of your organization. It's your messaging, and branding are assets that you will use. Just like your marketing are physical things like your website and so forth that you'll have in place to optimize your strategy. But in terms of my personal approach, what I would do is I would look at your business model and I would consider, who are your customers? So the first thing is to know who you want to speak to, because when it comes to digital, you need to know where those people are. And different channels can obviously impact you in different ways. But the main thing is to spend some time identifying what channels are best for you. Because one problem that, again, can lead to the overwhelm that we talked about is the fact that there are so many channels, which is a wonderful thing in lots of ways, because it means that we've got lots of opportunities to connect with people. But it can also mean oh my gosh, I'm going to have no more time in my day to do anything else other than create content for social media, which is also what we don't want to do. So spend some time thinking about where are the primary locations that they're hanging out online, where are they active, and then spend some time showing up. And if you can just start showing up, whether it's taking 30 minutes a day to answer some questions or comment on some posts on LinkedIn, identifying some people, hey, I could partner with them, or we might have similar clientele, but we're not directly competing. You can also build strategic partnerships, but all of it comes down from connection. So, connect with people, check what channels they're on, identify 1 or 2 primary core focal points for you and start showing up on those. But one thing that you can also consider, particularly if you're at a point where you can't necessarily sell your product right now, is to take this not only as an opportunity to connect with clients, but also as an opportunity to connect with people who could be strategic partners for your business. Because strategic partnerships are a great way to build exposure without having to do all of the legwork by yourself. And if you can find somebody who's complementary to what you're doing, then they may have an audience that you can serve. They might have a product that would really help your clients right now that maybe you can't help your clients right now, but maybe they do, in which case you can do a percentage of the price point, profit share, for example, so you can still generate revenue, even if your own product can't be sold. So in a nutshell, it goes back down to just being active, connecting with people, identifying channels, and then identifying opportunities.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. We have a question from
Phil Emmanuel.
Phil.
Yeah. Hi there.
Hi,
I think
Phil.
you answered yeah. How are you? I think you answered a little bit about it. I was going to say that there are various social media channels out there, and do certain businesses and industries lend themselves to certain channels, like, say, for instance, business to business with LinkedIn, but do other channels suit other areas of business, so I was just wondering whether there's any focus areas.
I mean, I think so. For example, if you have a fashion brand, I would say be on Instagram. Influencers and you could focus in, but also it totally depends on how you're choosing to engage, because a lot of it comes down to what content you're putting out and what is the narrative that you're directing, because we just need to connect with people, and people are in lots of different places. And if you're sharing the correct message and you're driving the narrative in the best way possible, then those people might find you on Facebook, even if they don't mean to go to Facebook to work. They might stumble across something, somebody might share your post. They might be more actively seeking things on LinkedIn, but that doesn't mean they can't also find you on another platform. But the primary thing is, it kind of goes back to what I just shared with, was it David? Make sure I get his name correct. In terms of just showing up. And so taking some time to answer questions, and you don't have to, like, one thing about this time is that a lot of people are starting to rush to do things. And this is why I would say you don't want to necessarily rush to do something, because you might do something a little bit prematurely that's not going to serve you the most long term. So take the next week, for example, to go on the likes of LinkedIn, consider who you want to speak to, leave some comments, engage with some people, see where people are most active and responding best to you, and then build strategy from an educated perspective.
Thank you.
Good. Well done, Han.
Amazing. If anyone's got any more questions, because I know we're going to shoot off. I know a couple of people have had to say they've had to go because they've got other appointments, but one last question, anyone? If not, amazing presentation. As always, Hannah, you were incredible, and for your age, you're so knowledgeable. So
Thank you.
I could listen to you all day.
And I just want to share something with the audience here. We got connected to two of the biggest names in the world. One, obviously, Sir Richard Branson. That came from Hannah, and you never know who you're going to meet online. And it is about that one connection. Yeah. I also just want to share with everyone. A lot of you on this channel today won't know this, and I'll share this with everyone. Is that how did I get connected to Roberta Carlos and Real Madrid? And the answer to that question is through Hannah. And Hannah had the pleasure of meeting Roberta Carlos and Real Madrid, and she kindly introduced us to them, and that's how I got that relationship now with Real Madrid and Roberta Carlos. And we plan to do events this month and next month with Real Madrid. So just to let you know as well, it's the power of your network, it's the power who you're connected to, and you're one connection away from meeting whoever you want to meet in the world. Someone knows someone who can connect you. And, you know, some of the people that we met on NECA, some of the biggest names on the planet that Hannah and ourselves are connected to. And that's the power of networking. So Hannah is a global serial networker, is connected to a lot of people.
And a little superstar.
And, you know, we had the pleasure of Hannah singing for Sir Richard on the beach on Necker Island, which was incredible. That was an amazing experience. You had that. And but Hannah is very well connected. And if you want to have a one-to-one with them and have a session with her, the people she knows, for someone for her age, is incredible. She gets exactly what we preach, is who you're connected to makes your world a big difference. It's so true.
And just share with everyone, Hannah, how old are you again?
I was thinking this might become a bit of an elephant in the room. I am 22. I'm 23 in about 13 days, actually.
It's not at all, because you started from a very young age. So you've got...
Yeah, I know. It's been interesting. It's like as I kind of touched on it at the beginning, but I started blogging when I was 13. Back in the Stone Age, I always joke of blogs, especially in Ireland. I mean, in 2010, a lot was happening in the US blog-wise, but in the UK and Ireland, it was a lot newer, especially in Ireland. So there was about 5 bloggers at the time. But, you know, that whole process taught me a lot. As I said, my whole experience came from just getting my hands dirty and doing things and creating opportunities from nothing. I mean, I started as a 13-year-old with, I didn't have a fund. I didn't have a budget. I didn't have anybody investing in me. It was all myself. And, you know, I just created opportunity, and it all came from our phone and from the laptop and from digital. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. And even one thing that we didn't touch on too much today, but is something to consider as well, is a lot of entrepreneurs hold themselves back by thinking you have to do paid ads. Your opportunity does not only lie in relying on paid marketing. You have the power to create content. If you have a phone, if you have a computer, you can create. Once you can create, you can have conversation. And once you can have conversation, you can create conversion. But yes, I am 22 and I'm a singer-songwriter as well as an entrepreneur. As I mentioned, my company is iGen Creative. I get to speak a lot. I get to work with great people a lot, like Tracy and Paul. But what you guys said as well about networking is like one conversation, one connection can change your life. And by being active and present online, you're just giving the people the chance to invite you and to think of you by being top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Wow.
We just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge as always. It's always a great pleasure. And a few of you will have seen Hannah speak last year at the Dragons. And you can see why that we invited Hannah back to share some fantastic golden nuggets, and hopefully you guys can implement them and use them for your business.